Um, Hold on a second. Now, I think that we won't get fooled again, but the only people that will be fooled again would be the inbreeding rednecks that support Trump. And of course, with them being unemployed, they don't know what's best for them. So basically, the Democrats won't be fooled, but the Republicans will. And let's hope that it's not going to get any worse off than it was. Um, so here we go again. Donald Trump's back. He's the cancer that just won't go away. Donald Trump is once again running for squatter, and for some, for the retarded inbreds that support him, they think he's the second coming, or in their mind, third coming of Jesus Christ, riding in on his Mandarin chariot of vitriol, lies, and deceit to save the world from God knows what the fuck. For the rest of us, he's a human popcorn husk stuck between your teeth, a human case of long COVID you can't shake, a cancer that you can't excise, radiate, or get rid of, no matter how much chemotherapy that you have to endure. Trump began his 2024 revenge tour in a typical aplomb before a crowd of cult sycophantic inbreds, cheering on every lie from every one of his lies from a ballroom at Mar-a-Lago. Outside, they were shouting Trump or death, which is kind of funny because they endured a lot more death under Trump than anything else. And inside, they worked themselves into a maggot hat frenzy, like ferrets on benzodrine, caffeine, and crystal meth. Because of course, that's what Trump supporters use. They use crystal meth. That's their drug. That's why they look as fucked up as they do. Donald, as always, is a menace to society, and he does not give a shit. You can never quite count the fucking idiot out. His survival instincts are preternatal, are preternatural, so whatever the fuck you want to call it, and his ability to con is uncanny. But his new announcement comes just after the midterms, where his favorite candidates were trounced. Those who ran in the big lie lost, and the Republican red wave never materialized. Now many in the GOP are looking elsewhere and anywhere for new leadership, while Trump claims his movement is the greatest in the history of the world, and it's not. And there will probably never be anything like it again, and we can only fucking hope. Trump is trying to resurrect his underdog status, which catapulted him into being a squatter in 2016, but he has the noose of several criminal and civil investigations, as well as his own track record as squatter, wrapped around his neck, weighing him down. It appears he has not learned from the midterm debacle suffered by the Republicans. His speech was pure fiction, including the claim that he kept us out of including the claim that he kept us out of wars for decades while squatter. The lies, too numerous to itemize, is a laundry list of reasons the voters rejected him so soundly in the last bid for the Oval Office. Now, historically, his historically early announcement for the office belies his insecurity and was strategically made to try to suck all of the oxygen out of the room, as Trump usually does, by planting himself firmly on center stage. His hope is to bench any and all Republicans that oppose his nomination. For now, Florida Governor Ron DeSantis, who's a fascist protege of Trump, looks to be the only viable alternative for the remnants of the Republican Party after Trump ravages. It would be best if we pull out the hook and yank Trump off stage, but the world is finally looking more and more familiar, and a little more hopeful with President Joe Biden at the helm than it had been at any point during Trump's 4 years as squatter. Trump has long claimed that only he can fix it, but he left the entire world teetering on disaster, a fact that was reinforced by his week's meeting between President Biden and Chinese President Xi Jinping in Bali. The two leaders spoke candidly about their priorities and intentions, including the need to work together to seek amicable solutions to serious problems. And rather than announcing that only he can fix it, both leaders, despite their differences, acknowledged the need for all nations to work together to solve the problems that we all share. As I said, we're at a crossroad. Now, working to build relationships is the cornerstone of Biden's foreign and domestic policy, and is an anathema to Trump, who preaches unity through baiting into submission of those who disagree with him. Now, Biden acknowledges reality, which is something that Trump does not, and Biden has been able to forge relationships with those who disagree with him, and to pass infrastructure bills in a coalition of support against Russian aggression in Ukraine. And this has been the heart of Biden's foreign policy. He really believes that a senior White House official recently explained to him. He really thinks that we can work together with all nations and even our enemies on issues where we have similar interests. And that's far from the old Donald Trump mantra of chest thumping, whining, and screeching like a wounded animal caught in a trap. And it's also a far cry from Trump's claim as he announced his third bid for the White House that China was responsible for him losing the last election, which he has yet to admit that he lost. Isolationists are having a fit because of Biden's foreign policy while cheering on Trump's insanity, and they ignore reality at the cost of humanity's existence. And we're all in this together, and isolating yourself from the rest of humanity is why the hunter-gatherers deep in the Amazon are no longer among us. Donald Trump is that man, a power-craving hunter-gatherer con artist that's out to stake his claim as a modern-day potentate, while imbued with basically the power of a puff pastry, and the world has moved on from Trump, even if his cult will still grovel and bray like wild jackasses at his feet. The rest of us are trying to take our lessons from the midterms and move on. Trump may not realize that taking away women's right to make her own medical choices is contrary to democratic principles, and he may not acknowledge that denying the 2020 election results subverts democracy, and he obviously does not give a shit what the rest of us think. But Trump and his minions are in the minority, and after 4 years of Donald Trump, the midterms made one thing exceedingly clear. He's fucking done. He can ravage the country, he can cause suffering and pain, but he has no legacy to maintain and nothing positive to give to society. And Rupert Murdoch tossed him on the dung heap of history. Mike Pompeo swiped at his former boss and called him out on the GOP, not to get caught staring in the rearview mirror claiming victimhood. It appears that what passes for Republicans in this day and age have had enough of getting their asses handed to them because of the meanderings of Trump and his mindless minions. That is to be expected from those with any common sense at all, which the Republicans and Trump sycophants do not have. Now, veteran Republicans, delighting in their own rectitude, still labor under the false assumption that they are righteous, so they venerate themselves while dismissing the man that they followed, and they lavish with praise until it was no longer profitable to do so. And that, of course, fails to describe Major Trader Green, the pedophile Matt Gaetz, Jim Jordan, the QAnon nutcase Lauren Boebert, Louis Gohmert, and a handful of other crusty miscreants whose sum total of wisdom and maturity couldn't fill a thimble, and they are the weakest of the weak, and proud to be on display, and far too ignorant to understand their sideshow status. And they, like Trump, demand to be heard for no reason other than they soiled their own laundry. Now, Trump has always attracted himself to such people, and made the mistake of seeing weakness as a merit, and inferiority as a superior asset. So have Pompeo, Bill Barr, and others who once attached themselves to Trump like blood-sucking Memoras to a shark. Those characters and others like them are now looking for a new shark, and many are drawn to the Satanists, who so far has yet to get engaged the former squatter, though Trump has trolled him several times recently. As previously noted here, President Joe Biden has taken some pleasure in what now looks to be a Satanist versus Trump death match. And this might be the missing piece as well. And Trump will get a lot of attention from the press. The Satanists will too, but the Democrats don't need to fear either of them. They both be far easier to vanquish than the potential threat that neither Democrats nor Republicans can see coming. The reemergence of a legitimate conservative party in America, whether it's called the Republican Party or something else, Democrats have been pushing for that since they got into office. And most notably by giving Liz Cheney and Adam Kinzinger prominent positions on the January 6th committee. Now, the current president, Joe Biden, talks about traditional Republicans and has described the MAGA crowd as a minority portion of the party, which admittedly means about damn near 50% of the Republican voters. Now, on this, I agree. Now, many Republicans say that Trump has the easiest path to victory, and they love to win. Now that Trump no longer looks like a winner, now where will those voters end up? Now, Biden's actions could be inadvertently responsible for the greatest threat to Democratic victory in 2024. Ladies and gentlemen, this is why we give you Liz Cheney and Adam Kinzinger. At this point, it's obvious that neither of them could win the Republican nomination, but a Cheney Kinzinger ticket with Cheney at the top would be a frightening prospect for Democrats, especially if Biden chooses to not run for re-election. Liz Cheney is not the hero that many perceive her to be at the moment, but what politician is? She has a following, and it's also is an appealing candidate for her patriotic response to the January 6th Klan insurrection that Trump incited. Now, that appeal supersedes the fact that for most of Trump's administration, she was one of his staunchest political allies. Of course, that was basically her only downfall. Of course, Cheney is a persona non grata among the maggots, but she's still a potential breakthrough GOP candidate. How ironic would it be for the party that continuously tries to tell women what to do with their bodies to have the honor of electing the first female president, if that ever happens? Now, pondering a possible Cheney campaign, a young GOP voter had said that the woke Democrats would eat their hearts out. This was a 26-year-old African American who works in retail management. He's a fake religious person, a former high school football star, and a conservative Republican. He belongs to the young Republican crowd that believes Democrats are all socialist, fascist, and anti-American. That's technically the Republicans. He only votes for Democrats, he said, when the Republicans are crazy. He didn't vote for Trump, and he doesn't like the Satanists, but he did say that he's intrigued by Cheney and Kinzinger. And to be sure, Donald Trump has a far better chance of becoming the Republican nominee in 2024 than Cheney ever does, and the Republicans are far closer to slipping deeper into authoritarianism than embracing the lessons that they might learn from last week's midterm election. For the moment, Cheney remains a young conservative's pipe dream. The Democrats can learn something from this midterms as well. And true, they stopped the red wave, but not on the strength of their candidates. It was because of the issues. Basically, they have a hard time messaging their issues. The voters, in many cases, chose what they saw as the lesser of two evils, and as we know, the problem with doing that is that you're still choosing evil. So what should the Democrats learn from this? Learn from the midterms? Perhaps they might reflect on the fact that they still lost control of the House by an agonizingly narrow margin, and to a political party filled with election deniers, clowns, reprobates, con artists, thieves, and robber barons. The Republicans are gradually morphing into the Nazi Party, and the Democrats still lost their seats. Christ, how ineffective can you be? Now, however low the Republicans set the bar, the Democrats barely crawled over it. The message from the Democrats after the midterms is that people voted for democracy. Actually, that remains to be fucking seen, because Democrats are slapping themselves in the back because they didn't lose as badly as the pundits, pollsters, and press thought they would, and that's not any cause for gloating. Can we aim a little higher here? The country still needs much better voter turnout if democracy is to win. And one thing people close to Trump have noted is that for all the supposed high engagement in these midterms, there are plenty of precincts across the country where voter turnout was below 50%. And as I'm told, this favors Trump in his 2024 bid. Trump's people are rabid voters when he's actually in the ballot. If all goes according to whatever plan Trump has, and let's face it, he never really has a plan anyway. But those Trump voters could give him the Republican nomination and sweep him right back into the White House while the rest of us sleep. I don't buy it. Donald Trump has failed to learn a lesson from reality as many times as he had before in his life, and the world has moved on past him. I still don't believe he'll be on the ballot in the 2024 general election, but he is, and he remains a pariah. But what's left of the Republican Party? Held hostage by Trump for the last 6 years, he is struggling to move on despite his natural tendencies to play the role of the gimp in Pulp Fiction. The Democrats, should Biden decide to run again, are potentially putting on an octogenarian on the ballot against a lunatic con artist, basically. Now, I pray there are going to be better options. As Pete Townsend once told us, he gets on his knees and pray, but we won't get fooled again. So who's next? That's the album containing that song. I hope it's someone who values democracy, and we all know that won't be Trump. So if you like the video, you can give the video a like and subscribe to my channel, RBW King. You can also hit the notification bell so you'll be notified when a new video comes out. And if you want to support my work even further, you can donate to my Patreon link, which you can find in the About section of YouTube. And for just a little as a few bucks a month, your donation can help go a long way, and thanks for listening.